not live. Hold on. All right, looking good. Here we go. All right, welcome everybody. I'm gonna pin this. Hello everyone, Lewis here from Rope-A-Dope, and welcome to episode 4 of Speakin, many.His. I want you to bear with us today a little bit. We've had a major computer crash and have set up at an alternate location, so things look a little bit different, and we're going to stop here and there to check the feed. Please comment if you're not seeing things working properly. It'll be very helpful. Quarantine gives us a little option. It's very, very exciting today to welcome our special guest. 6 well-deserved Grammys on the shelf, and a proud representative of the city of Philadelphia, which we love. Wherever he goes, he's performed. All right, there we go. He's performed with all the greats, and on many recordings and live, all while leading 5 different bands. No stranger to the halls of Rope-A-Dope, as one of our most important records, if not the most important, probably the second record we ever released was the Philadelphia Experiment with Christian Mcbride, Harry Kane, and Questlove. And then we followed up a little bit later with a powerful Live at Tonic double CD. I have so much respect for this man's position. He manages to carry forward the tradition of jazz, but always while taking chances and pushing into new ground. We will be chatting with Christian and Dekel Bor, a guitarist who has released a record recently, Let Love Rule, here at Rope-A-Dope. And with that, I'm going to check the feed and I'm going to turn it over. Mr. Dekel Bor, welcome. Mr. Christian Mcbride, welcome.
What a pleasure it is. What a pleasure it is. So I'll open by saying that from all the guests on the show, we here for a few reasons. The first being, I just had an album out and I'm working on the next one. And usually what happens is, in the midst of working on it, you go to see all your favorite cats and you ask for advice, and the mentorship thing is huge. With COVID in the way, it's my way of reaching out to a few people that I admire or love or close with or mentored by. Ask for a lot of advice, which is really what most of this episode will be about. I've met Christian ever since I was 16, and I always picked his brain with questions some are better than others, I would say. But so first of all, Christian has an album coming out tomorrow. So congratulations! I can't wait to get it. It was supposed to be here. I ordered it on Amazon, but they don't send it until it's out. So tomorrow around this time, neighbors will regret having me around. So I'd love to hear more. I mean, it's the second Big Man album and some guests on it, which I love. You and the guests go way back. And I mean, what made you decide to do those songs right now? What was the story?
Well, you're right. Joey DeFrancesco is my oldest friend in music. We've known each other for about 36 years now. We met when we were in middle school. I was 12 years old and Joey was 13. And I met Mark Whitfield shortly after I moved to New York City, which was 31 years ago. And so we've been friends for a long time. And Joey and I played on the Jazz Cruise about 5 years ago. And we were sitting around talking one night, and inside of this casual conversation, we wondered why, after all of these years, we've never really done a full-scale project together. I mean, I know why, because him being such a world-class organist, he doesn't need a bass player. He plays the bass in his left hand and his left foot, so organ players don't really need bass players. But we figured that since, we've been close friends for so long, this would be different, and we thought, well, what would we do? And Joey said, look, you're busy, I'm busy, we got a lot of stuff going on. Let's make sure whatever we do, let's do something fun, something we can just go in the studio and just, knock it out. And so we both are huge fans of those big band records that Jimmy Smith made with Oliver Nelson. And of course, Wes Montgomery played on those albums. And we thought, well, who would play the Wes Montgomery part? And, because obviously we know a lot of guitar players. And so Joey said, let's get Whitfield. And I thought, perfect, that sounds good to me. So we called Mark Whitfield, and we decided to pay tribute to those two recordings that Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery did with Oliver Nelson. And we played some of the original charts that were recorded, but we also played some new ones. And I wrote one called Pie Blues, and I also wrote a big band version of Wes Montgomery's Road Song, which originally was just for the small group. So I'm very excited about this this new release. And Joey, Mark, both those guys. Mark is a monster, has been for a long time, and I think Joey DeFrancesco. When you're talking about great organ players of the modern era, I believe that it. When I say modern era, I'm talking within the last 40 years. There have been a lot of great organ players, but I really believe you cannot start off that conversation without mentioning Joey's name first. And I don't say that because he's my friend. I say that because I have ears.
So what was the process behind actually playing, tracking the thing? There were any rehearsals, who made the arrangements, who did the transcriptions? Because it sounds like you guys have been playing in this combination with the big band, with the guest, forever. It just sounds like a sort of thing.
Well, yeah. Obviously, we had at least one rehearsal, but a lot of that stuff we all knew already. Like that very popular Oliver Nelson arrangement of Down by the Riverside. That's been, a lot of people play that. What were some of the other ones? We did Milestones. We did Night Train. Yeah. So Night Train, Down by the Riverside, Milestones. Those three songs, most of the band members knew already, and so we didn't.
You recorded Night Train before, right? You recorded Night Train on the first one.
Yeah.
With Clayton and Ray.
Ray and Mill Hinton were on that record, but the version of Night Train that I recorded was just solo bass. But yeah, some of the arrangements weren't available, so I got someone to transcribe the original charts. I'm sorry, I got someone to transcribe Night Train and Milestones, and I got my friend Ed Palermo, who leads the Ed Palermo Big Band. He's one of the most brilliant musicians I've ever met, and he's got really huge ears. He can hear anything, and so he transcribed Milestones and Night Train from the original recording.
Yeah.
I already had the chart for Down by the Riverside. You can buy that anywhere. And then I wrote those two other ones, Pie Blues and Road Song. And then the other 5 songs are all combo tunes, which is sort of the format for the original Jimmy Smith, Wes Montgomery recording.
Yeah.
Half big band, half small group.
Great. So I'm just going to ask a whole bunch of questions that I never got to ask you before.
Please, do it.
I mean, some people say, you know, that there's going to be a cat in each generation that's going to be the most recorded cat of that generation, but you somehow maintain that position for 3-4 generations now, because you started so early. And the first thing that was always apparent was a huge sound and that beat. Are those things that you worked on specifically as a teenager, or like, where does that beat come from?
Well, thank you. It came from copying every great bass player I ever loved. You know, when I was first learning how to play, I would literally do my best to copy Ron Carter note for note, try to understand what the feel is. I coming from rhythm and blues and soul music, feel is not something that, you know, I mean, like, if you can dance, if you can feel the rhythm, if you know how to move your body right in the groove, you know, I don't think you should have to work that hard at learning how to groove. That should be in here. You know what I mean? If somebody says 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, your body should just be able to say, okay, I know what that is, you know.
Yeah.
Now, needless to say, you still have to practice, you know, you still have to work on it. But finding the groove is something that I feel that's sort of like at some point that has to be organic. There's only so much working on that you can do for it to feel good, for it to feel natural. And so I think listening to a lot of rhythm and blues and a lot of soul music helped me prepare to feel what those grooves are, you know. I don't think I actually really you know, consciously worked on trying to make it feel good when I played, you know. I got that naturally from listening to James Brown and Motown, you know. Even in jazz, you know, that feel carries over into jazz. But specifically, I tried to copy Ron Carter, Paul Chambers, Ray Brown, Oscar Pettiford, Percy Heath, and then younger players who were coming on the scene like Robert Hurst and Sharnette Moffett and Peter Washington. They're older. They're not much older than me. They're older than me, but they started making records obviously long before I did. So I listened to them as much as I listened to all of the grand masters from the past, you know. So I just did a lot of transcribing. And when you transcribe, you don't have to learn just the notes, but you have to learn the feel too.
Yeah.
And so when I came to New York, man, I just wanted to. I wanted so badly to be on the scene, playing with people. You know, so I would go to jam sessions all the time. I would just play with whoever, just so I could just have the experience of playing with different people who were on the New York scene. I didn't care about style. I could learn a style, you know, but I just wanted to be in the groove with someone who was in New York on the scene. So I wanted it that bad.
So would you say that feel and that sound and that groove is what gave you the tools to record with uh, uh, Joe Henderson on one day and then Sting another day and Shaka Khan on one day, and is like what is the connecting thread with someone that's records, I mean, hundreds of sessions? I mean,
Um, yes, obviously groove is important, but I also believe it's the willingness to do the work, to understand what each artist needs. You know, there's sort of a selflessness, I believe, that's involved in playing with a lot of different people. Um, because there are a lot of musicians who feel like, well, this is how I play. If you call me, this is what you're going to get, you know? Whereas I like to be flexible. Like, yes, I play a certain way, but if that's not exactly what you need, let me hear what you need and I'll try to give you that, you know? And that's the thread, I think, that links the musicians that have played on a lot of recordings. There's a certain sense of giving. You know, what does the music need? I know what I have, but what does the music need? You know,
yeah.
So I think that's more important.
Beautiful. So I'm just gonna drop some albums and just get a few sentences from you of what that artist or that album means to you, because all they're related to your work.
Okay.
So the first is Maiden Voyage. I'm assuming, like, I remember when we met, I was like 16, and Herbie was already on the next album. You just recorded the
Sci-Fi.
Yeah, and you already recorded with the Double Rainbow album, and I'm sure there were a lot of moments prior to that. But what does it feel like? I mean, when I listen to that album, to both those albums, there seems to be, and I know you guys play trio as well, there seems to be some sort of a hook that really works. I mean, for what he brings. Like, you kind of give him a launching pad to do things that he doesn't always do with other people, from my mind. What is it like from, in your shoes?
Man, Herbie Hancock. I had this discussion just, maybe it was yesterday or just the day before. No, it was yesterday. One thing that never leaves the personality, or it shouldn't leave the personality of the professional jazz musician, is serving the music. Again, it's sort of like this, we're on-call musicians, so we play a lot of different styles with a lot of different people, and so you adjust what you already have to give that music what it needs. But then when you're somebody like Herbie Hancock, you do that, but then you just have this special power. I don't even know what it is, because, I mean, Herbie Hancock's been on a lot of different types of recordings also. He's been on like some hardcore swinging recordings. He's been on some avant-garde recordings, some really abstract type of music. He's done funk. He's done pop. He started his career playing a piano concerto with the Chicago Symphony when he was like 11 years old. So he understands a lot of different types of musical languages. And as a piano player, he didn't really have to do that. You know what I mean? He can just say, hey, I'm Herbie Hancock and I'm just going to play whatever I play and you're going to like it, which is probably true. But when I worked with him on Joe Henderson's Double Rainbow, and when he played on my recording Sci-Fi, he was a regular sideman. You know what I mean? He was just he had the same sort of what you saw from him in the studio was nothing different than you would see from any other piano player you would work with in the studio. Hey, give me the music, and he's sitting there looking at the music and he's working it out, and he will ask something like, hey, is it okay if I play something like this here? What are you looking for right here? You know what I mean? He's one of the cats. He's just, Chick Corea is like that. all of these great musicians are very basic in that they come to the studio and they ask you, what do you want? Is this cool? Do you like this if I do that? No, I don't like that. Do something else. Okay, cool, no problem. You know, and that's why they're on so many records. You know, I'm like, when I did Sci-Fi, Herbie asked me to send him the music and possibly even a demo ahead of time. You know, so he said, you know, so I can learn it and get it in my head. So when I come to the studio, I'll be prepared. And so he's sitting there with, you know, he and Diane Reeves, and they're going through the song, and man, it just blew my mind. I was standing there going, Herbie Hancock is playing a song that I wrote. Like, I can't believe this, you know. And like after he played it, after they ran through it, Herbie looks up and says, you know, like something like that. Is that okay? Is that kind of how you were hearing it? I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I was hearing it, you know. So man, Herbie's a regular cat, man. You know, he when we got to the end of the song, this was a beautiful thing. I'm speaking of a song of mine called "Lullaby for a Ladybug." Yeah. I had a song, I had an ending that I'd written, and while we were playing it, Herbie said, "Hey, I think I have an idea." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, I was thinking of maybe something we can add to the ending if you're okay with this." I said, "Sure, what is it?" And so he came up with this vamp, like that little 4-chord vamp at the end of the song. Herbie came up with that. And, you know, it was something similar. You know, all he did was say, like, you know, "You like that? Is that okay? You don't mind that?" I was like, "No, I don't mind that at all, you know. But thank you for suggesting that, you know." And so, you know, man, like, when I heard Maiden Voyage for the first time, because that's one of the first jazz albums I heard. It was like when I first started understanding.
I always felt that album had a thing on your compositional style. I always saw a relationship there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like that. All the people that played on that recording, you know, Freddie Hubbard, George Coleman, Herbie, Ron, and Tony. They're all heroes. Everything they've ever played on. I've never heard a recording that any of those people played on that I didn't like. You know, Big George, Freddie, Herbie, Ron, Tony. You know, so I think a lot of that did probably get in me, and anyone else who was touched deeply by that recording. I asked Herbie one time how he notated Maiden Voyage, because the vamp at the beginning, we call those chords sus chords.
Yeah.
But sus chords, like, nobody used the term sus in the mid-1960s. And so I asked Herbie, I said, "How did you notate that? Did you write D sus 9, D sus 4? And he says, "You know, I actually don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I wrote A minor over D, which is, you know, the easiest
like
way.
C over D, yeah.
No, C over D, one of the two, yeah. So, but it was just wonderful to kind of get into his brain a little bit to talk about that session. You know, that's a classic album for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I think there was a pocket in time where polychords were a thing for him and for Wayne and all that Miles Quintet thing.
Yes.
And I remember it took a lot of effort to get him to give me some insight about the voices on Nefertiti. I mean, everybody has their own version for that.
Right.
And of course, he doesn't really remember it. It could be like this, it could be like that.
Yeah.
Just, you know, legendary piece of music. I'm moving forward. Another album that had a real impact on me, and I got to play with you guys, is this album, Dan Qual, Love Scenes.
Yes.
I mean, it was a real band. it felt like a real band live. It just seems like you guys have this very strong connection, and I think this album is. I mean, it's just the vibe on that album. It means so much to me. I'm sure like it was a mirror of the relationship with Russell, the relationship with Diana, with Family Puma. But it's really hard to get this kind of vibe in the studio.
Yeah, it is. That was a really fun record. I mean, that was pretty much the record that made Diana a household name. She had two records. Well, she had the one record that was on the smaller label. I can't remember.
With Clayton and Jeff.
That's right. And then she had her first record on GRP, Only Trust Your Heart, which was the first record of hers that Tommy LaPuma produced. And then she had the Nat King Cole tribute record.
Yeah.
And then
with
she did
Paul.
Oh, damn it! I hate having brain farts on something that's going to be documented.
So the album before this, Ben Wolf and Russell, and then the band with you guys, with you and Russell, and then afterwards it's the same guy with Peter Erskine.
Yeah, that was boy, man, this is not supposed to be happening. Oh no. Well, we'll come back to that. Love Scenes I remember very, very well. We did that record, I think in early 1997, and I know it came out in 1997, but yeah, we recorded it then. And, you know, Diana's career was growing larger and larger by the day. And Tommy was there, and I've always loved playing with Diana because she likes really hip tunes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really hip standards with her. And also around that same time, Russell and I were playing some trio gigs with Benny Green. And so to play in a drumless trio, that wasn't something that was unusual for either one of us. So yeah, I mean,
I've seen you guys with Benny a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've seen you guys with Benny a couple of times.
And so I just remember going into the studio to make Love Scenes, and it was just really fun. It was easy, and then when the recording came out, you know, it just like exploded. And then Diana Krall was literally a star after that recording came out.
Marianne told me that it went from 3K to 30K in one day per gig.
Yeah,
or something
I believe it. I believe it. That sounds correct.
Beautiful. I'm going to the next one. This is a shout out to my brother Walter Smith. Happy birthday, Walter. Great album.
Is his birthday today? No, it was last week.
Birthday today.
Really?
Yeah. So if he's watching, I love you. You're the best. Amazing album. If you guys don't have this on vinyl, you guys are missing out. But again, this sounds like a supernatural session. You guys, you know, you and Harlan, you and Joshua, and you and Walter. This is, I don't know if you noticed, do some either masterclass or some teaching, kids would start pulling out songs from this album only because of this album. Like people would play like Someone in Love in 5, like some kids at a school, and you know immediately it's from this one, or they would call nobody else but me, and it's either you guys or Peter Bernstein. No one else plays that tune.
Right.
So it's real. This album has a real impact. It's kind of unbelievable.
Well, you know, Walter Smith has been. I love that guy, man. He's a brilliant musician. And I love his sense of humor. He likes old school, corny humor, and I like that about him. You know, he likes those old like comedians that I like. You know, like Bob Newhart and Jonathan Winters. You know, he likes all that old, you know, stale comedy, and I love him for that. But at the same time, he is such a forward-thinking, incredible musician.
Yeah.
And when I had my band with Ron Blake and Jeff Keezer and Terry Gully, when Ron couldn't make it, I started using Walter quite a bit. And man, I just love playing with him. And when he told me he wanted to put together this recording with Eric, I was excited. I couldn't wait to play with Walter and Eric. And of course, when Joshua came in, it just put it right over the top, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of songs that we played, at least one other song that we recorded that didn't make the final album, didn't make the final cut. So there's more material than what's actually on the record.
That's very cool.
Yeah, but man, Walter, he's just...
Was he also playing with the quartet with Nasheed just before Strickland was in, or something like that?
No, he never played in the New John, but yeah, he only played in the CMB with me with Keezer and Terry Gully when Ron Blake was unavailable. But yeah, I love Walter, man. That Twio record is. I mean, look at the name of the album, Twio. Who calls their album Twio? You know.
Yeah, he's a genius. All right, I'm moving forward. I always thought that it's Twain's birthday yesterday. I always thought that this was an album for you, just by listening to your playing. I always thought that this would be just the instrumentation, the band, the Philly Joe thing, the Philly thing. I mean, I always felt that if there's a Coleman album that you know by heart, every song from every instrument is going to be this one.
I probably know 7/8 of that album. I don't know if I know every single note that well, but I think I'm pretty sure I know every single note played on the title track on Blue Train. Everybody's solo is top notch. Yeah, I mean you're right. That's a great album. The whole Philly connection with Lee Morgan and Train and Philly Joe Jones. Yeah, that was another one of those recordings that was very important for me, along with Maiden Voyage, along with Kind of Blue and Jazz at Massey Hall and Miles Davis Live at Carnegie Hall. Blue Train was definitely in that first batch. And every song on that album is a classic, you know.
So this one we talked about, Jimmy with Oliver Nelson.
Yes.
So Lalo Schifrin on it.
Lalo Schifrin on that album.
This album I got. John Clayton sent me this and another and the further adventures of Jimmy and Wes with a note. I mean, the most beautiful note. I was just a kid, and he wanted to get me on the right track, listening to the right things. And he ended the note by saying, "Your fan, John." And I was like, I mean, who has the humility and the beauty to say something like this to a kid?
John Clayton is so beautiful, man. I love that cat. Yeah. He's the man. My big brother.
So I'm going to this. This is something that I definitely know that is a big thing for you. Heavy Weather with Jackal. It's in the writing. It's in I mean, you really. I mean, I don't want to be an asshole, but you're the only guy that I dig on electric bass. That's this guy.
No, stop it.
Honestly, there's something between guitar and acoustic bass that really work well.
Yeah.
And guitar and electric bass, there's just so many of the same.
Right.
I mean, if you want to swing in a rhythm section, it's really hard to get electric guitar and electric bass. Yeah. It doesn't have that bounce. There's a lot of the overlapping things. It's just my money, and you know. But let's talk about the album, the writing. I think it was huge for you.
Yeah, you know, well, before I comment on Heavy Weather, you know, I remember I would listen to Bob Cranshaw play with Sonny Rollins, and he would have Jerome Harris playing guitar on occasion, and Paul Motion's Electric Bebop Band was also very interesting, but they really worked on creating like a certain aesthetic with those groups, you know. So that's probably, I can't think of too many other examples where bass and guitar, like electric bass and electric guitar, like you say, really can swing. It's very difficult to pull that off. But you know, man, Heavy Weather was actually not my favorite Weather Report album. My favorite Weather Report album for many years was Black Market, because it has both my guys on there, Alphonso Johnson and Jocko. And I knew the album Heavy Weather quite well because, of course, Birdland was on it, and that was like a huge hit when I was a kid. And it became an even bigger hit once Manhattan Transfer recorded it. But yeah, I was a bigger fan of Black Market, and I was also a fan of Domino Theory, because the Domino Theory album was I was in high school when that record came out. Oh, I'm sorry, I was in junior high school when that record came out, and one of my great mentors in Philly, great saxophonist by the name of Robert Landon, bought that record, and I would go to his house and we would listen to Domino Theory all the time. So we would listen to D-flat waltz, all that stuff, and Swamp Cabbage and Predator, all those tunes. But then I said, well, let me go back and listen to Heavy Weather, because I know it's a great album. It's an album that I've really enjoyed, and I knew it was great, but I said I never really went deep down inside the rabbit hole. You know, everybody knew Birdland. Every electric bass player in the world tried to learn Teen Town. You know, so I was just like, I'm staying away from Heavy Weather for a while. But then, like, Palladium and Havana, those were the two songs that kind of pulled me back in, you know.
And you also have that same thing, like the remark you made. You also have that same thing, like you sing in it, like you're a violin player or something.
Oh, I mean, that's very sweet of you. I'm doing my best to get better at being able to pick my spots. You know, Wayne Shorter is a master at that. You can hear it not only as an improviser, but also as a writer. Like Jaco Pastorius, like people who always influenced me, you know, people like Freddie Hubbard, McCoy Tyner, Jaco Pastorius, they were like, you know, they played with such like fervor, like they like had like machine gun like technique, you know. Freddie Hubbard, you know, McCoy Tyner just, you know, Jaco just coming at you, you know. But somebody like Wayne Shorter has this great ability. I mean, he obviously can play like that. He's got some fast fingers. You know, he can go Coltrane on you in a minute. But he's a master at storytelling and always having you on the edge of your seat. Wayne Shorter is like one of the only soloists, and Herbie has this also to an extent, where it's like you're like, wow, what's he going to play next? Ooh, stop teasing, come on. Ooh, yeah. You know, it's like if he's a boxer, you know, he's just like pity pat, boom, pity pat. You know, it's like I just love how they always set you up, man. You know,
I think that Joshua is also a genius at that.
Oh yeah. No, Joshua definitely is he's a setup man.
Yeah. But I think what people miss about Wayne sometimes, like if I transcribe the whole album on Speakin.
Yeah.
And his solos, like a kid can almost sing all of them. I mean, they're just so singable. They're just so straightforward. I mean,
Hart almost like heads. Yeah, Wayne is so heavy, man. Plus that sound, you know, it's like just the way he's able to manipulate, you know, certain notes and certain phrasing, and You know, it's just always is like, oh, give me more, Wayne. You know, and then after he's done taking a solo, you're like, no, 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 don't stop now. You know, he's like, chapter 2 coming soon. You know,
You're the only guy that really subbed with that band, with the quartet. I mean, you play with them. You played with the quartet a couple of times.
Just once. Yeah. Scott Colley also played with the quartet once. I think a couple of people have been in there. I know Terry Lynn subbed for Brian Blade. Terry Lynn Carrington subbed for Brian a couple of times. Both Jason Moran and Jeff Keezer filled in for Gilo Perez.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. And so, I have the gig that I played with the quartet, which was actually still pretty early in their existence. I think the quartet had only been together for maybe 2 years when I played with them. This was back in 2002. I have a video of that. So every now and then I like to go back and watch and like, wow, that really happened. I had no idea what I was doing, man. That's one of the few gigs I've ever played in my life where, like, at some point I had to realize I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm going to have to be okay with it. Whatever happens, happens. You know.
That has to be a beautiful feeling. I mean, after all those years, to still feel like that, it has to be amazing. And where you're at, to still get that every now and then has to be a gift.
Oh, it didn't start out feeling amazing. Because, you know, you're playing with Wayne Shorter and you want to really make sure you play the right notes, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, they had gotten to such an abstract place. I mean, they were still playing songs, but they were playing, the way they were playing the songs was nothing like the way it looked on the paper, you know. So I'm looking at the paper and nothing I'm doing is matching up with Danilo and Brian. So I would say, like, after 10 minutes, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna have to go with my ears, you know. And there's one part on the video, I'm playing something, and Wayne kind of looks at me and smiles, and my cynical brain says, that was Wayne's way of saying no.
I can see the comments on the Jazz Times page right now from students saying, when can we see this? When can we see this?
Oh, soon. You'll see it one of these days.
I'm moving forward because there's too many people here that I know you love. There's Jacko, Word of Mouth. We just talked about Jacko. Cannibal. I mean, my favorite Cannibal is probably the Mercy Mercy Myth thing. I mean, just to get something to feel like that has to be. I mean, if I was there, I'm imagining people dancing on the tables, screaming. But
you know,
I know you know those guys.
Cannibal Adderley really is. He really is sort of like my hero for a lot of reasons. Not simply as a player, but the way he communicated with his audience, just how well-rounded he was. You know, he started out his professional career as a music teacher. He was also very well-versed in philosophy, religion. I mean, this cat he could have a conversation about anything, politics, Greek mythology, you know. And then he played this music that it was both intellectual, but also very, very, very from the heart, you know.
Yeah.
He didn't try to lose you with abstractions all the time. You know, he could put some blues on you and then go back to playing something like, you know, Experiencing E or Rumpelstiltskin or something like that. You know, Cannon was just so heavy, man. He's one of my biggest heroes.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that he kept that sound at the time where everybody was just trying, where the cool thing was to just play, you know, boss was hiring some Rivers for a minute,
Right.
and he went, and I think the audience really got it. I mean, I imagine to be at one of those gigs had to be a religious experience.
Yeah, man. Um, there's a video that came out a couple of years ago. It's on YouTube of Cannonball playing, I think in Oslo, maybe from his 1969 European tour. And see, to me, that was sort of like Cannonball at his peak because you know, it was 1969, so there was a serious black consciousness going on at that time. So everybody was making this music very much like now, dealing with social change. But there was some sort of balance in the way he was able to address that because like they're still wearing tuxedos, right? But they got the afro, and Nat Adderley's got his hip shades on, and like they look very 69ish, but they still had the look of yes, but we are presenting music at a concert in a concert hall, and you know they go out, they go in, you know what I mean? It's just in any Cannonball Adderley from that period, it's just it hits home for me.
Yeah, and I also think that any Nat Adderley from anywhere. I mean,
I
and
love
he's
that.
just such an unsung cat. I mean, one of my favorite West is with Nat. I mean, just he took West in a completely different direction. Of course, the Paul winners with West and Adderley, but
Right.
so I'm going to McCoy Tyner Extension.
Ooh.
I knew I was going to get that. So
that's probably an album I know. I may know every single note on that record.
I can hear it in your thing. I can hear it. I mean, so what does it mean to you? What years? What when did you listen to it? How old were you? What did it take you?
Well, again, the same gentleman that schooled me on that Weather Report album, Robert Landon, he schooled me on this album, Extension.
Is he Byron's dad or something?
Brother, older brother. He's Byron's older brother. Yeah. And so I knew the album Expansions already. And Robert's like, well, Expansions is great, but if you think Expansions is great, you need to hear Extensions. And so when I heard Extensions, there's that tune on there called The Wanderer. And man, Wayne Shorter plays one of the greatest solos I've ever heard in my life, man. And I also like that record specifically because like when it was recorded, it was like right on the cusp of like Wayne was just about to leave Miles Davis. I mean, I think that record was made in like February of '70, and Wayne left Miles's group like the next month or something like that, or later that month, whatever it was. And then Weather Report started up. So like that's an interesting period in Wayne Shorter's development. And to hear him playing like McCoy Tyner's music in the middle of all of that is fascinating. And also Ron Carter's bass sound on that album, actually both Ron and Elvin, it doesn't sound like, at least not to me, it doesn't quite sound like the same.
I know you know this.
Yeah, it doesn't. Rudy Van Gelder also has a new sound. It doesn't quite sound like the Rudy Van Gelder of the '50s and the '60s. This is like a new sort of like modern, updated Rudy Van Gelder sound. So you can hear like Ron Carter. You know, he's got a DI happening. Elvin's drums sound a little different. But I mean, it's a snapshot of these titans playing music in a very personal and social transition during that period. So it's like, I enjoy listening to music from that time in history because they weren't simply just thinking about just making music. They were all being influenced and touched by what was going on in Black consciousness and like by 1970, like fusion was about to start happening. So the young cats who were coming on the scene at that time were kind of like, I don't really know if I want to play straight ahead. I might want to go toward more of this kind of rock kind of thing. Why did the air conditioner just come on? Sorry about that. But yeah, it's and everything about that album, Extensions, man, it's just that's some high level improvisation right there.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It doesn't sound like any other album for those cats. Not from McCoy, not from Wayne. And I always felt that McCoy and Ron had a thing.
Yes.
I mean, people don't talk about it enough. I mean, it just had a sound that was completely different than what these guys got with other people.
Well, you know, I don't know how many recordings Ron and McCoy have done together, but I mean, it's just so vast. They had a very, very special hookup together.
Yeah. So I'm eating the last couple I have here because I want to ask other shit, but you know. But
bring it.
I know that. I mean, for me growing up, you guys and your with Don Braden, with Roy, with you guys kind of, and with Freddie, you guys for me were the only living embodiment of this sound, this super strong quintet sound, the writing, how to write through a couple of horns, how to make that band move, and I also saw you guys do it live, how to make that band move, how to make that structure move in front of an audience. I mean, it's a very specific audience. So, I mean, anything you want to, any light you want to shed on this, I'm all ears.
Well, I appreciate those very kind words, man. I find it interesting sometimes with, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to leave this room. It's a little noisy in here.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I'll go to a little quieter space. But I find that the period of the late 80s and the early 90s, what they call the Young Lions period, I enjoyed that period very much. You know, I like the fact that, you know, like you said, me, Benny, Don Braden, Roy Hargrove, all these cats, we were really trying to understand the language of the music that we loved. And it saddens me sometimes, like when I hear certain critics, or maybe even certain musicians say like, well, that Renaissance period of jazz killed the progression of the music. And
I think, I'm sorry to cut you, but I think that's the biggest bullshit, and it's all political. I mean, I can tell you that if Winton and you guys would never happen, if we would never get, now you can go to any place, you can go to Rome, you can go to Zurich, you can go to Berlin, and people can play it. I mean, they know changes, and their time is more or less somewhere. Before that, I'm quite sure that wasn't the case. I mean, and I can hear the younger guys, a generation after, and they can play fast and they can play on 3 chords.
Right.
But put something like a Long Came Betty or a slow blues in D flat.
Right.
And the game is over. I mean,
see, man, you know, it was always, it seemed pretty simple to me. Like, you know, people say like, okay, well, that straight ahead stuff y'all playing, that stuff is so elementary. It's you know, it's retro. You know, nobody plays like that anymore. Now, what I always argue is that, okay, so there was the generation right before us used to feel that way, right? But then people like Freddie Hubbard, George Coleman, Clark Terry, Milt Jackson, Ray Brown, Betty Carter, Abby Lincoln, Art Blakey, who was still alive when I came to town, Hank Jones, all of them said, thank God you're playing what you're playing. We needed you guys. You know, like they felt like there hadn't been a group of young musicians who were interested in doing what they did for a long time. You know, so when I see writers say, "Oh well, the Young Lion era, killed the creative progression of jazz," I'm going, "Well, you are highly insulting the great legends who hired us because they disagree with you vehemently." You know, now where I stood in the middle of all of that is that. See, I remember playing a gig in San Sebastian. This would have been around 1993. And I was playing in a trio with Joshua Redman and Jeff Keezer. And we opened for the Art Ensemble of Chicago. And just musically speaking, I would assume that they would not enjoy what Wynton was doing, or anybody who was sort of identified with Wynton was doing. But I always deeply enjoyed the Art Ensemble Chicago. It had so many albums, listened to all that stuff. And so I stayed to listen to their set. And I don't know if Don Moyer and Malachi Favors, I'm not sure if they seem to be like surprised that I hung out. Like, wow, you stayed. Man, that's great. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I stay? They're like, well, you down with Wynton and all them dudes. I said, wait, no. Yes, I deeply love and respect Wynton Marsalis, but that doesn't mean I agree with the man on everything. And that's the thing that bothers me about these camps. These sort of these sanctions that go around in jazz, like you can't be down with more than one group, So it's like, oh, Christian McBride, you're the Ray Brown protege, so don't move from there. We need you there. You like avant-garde? You can play avant-garde? Okay, great, but we don't need you over there. We need you here. And as an artist, I'm like, you talk about being, constrictive and not letting things progress. You keeping me in your little drawer is keeping me from progressing, So it's not the musicians, it's everybody else who refuses to let us do all of these different types of projects. So when I came home, after the gig was over, I'm walking back to the hotel with Lester Bowie, and I'm wondering how I could tell this story without using all the profanity. But the thing was, he was using his profanity in a really good way, because I remember him saying like, I'll clean it up. He basically said, I like the fact that, yeah, you listen to Ray Brown, you listen to Paul Chambers, you got all that in your playing. I can hear that, but you don't copy that. You play that sound and that feel in a contemporary way. He said, "Now I respect that. You don't have your head caught up like them other guys, right? You're actually open to a lot of different stuff, and that's a very nice and clean way of interpreting what he said, what he actually said that night. But I said all of that to say that when I came to New York, man, all the cats that were part of the Young Lions, whatever you want to call it, I enjoyed all of it. It was very exciting, man. It was very exciting to have Milt Jackson call me for a gig because he knew I knew those tunes. I wasn't interested in like, oh, I'm playing with Milt Jackson. Let me go push the old man and put some new ideas in his music. No. Play the gig, respect the gig. And then whatever happens after that, you have to gain the man's confidence first. So I was never into like, upsetting the apple cart just on general principle. I don't think that's what the greatest musicians in the world have done, So I'm glad we were able to influence you during that period.
I'm sure that I'm telling you shit you already know, but I think the intelligence that it would take to play with Hank Jones,
Right.
or I mean, people always think of political or what's cool or what's whatever, what sells or what's interesting or original. I want to see someone keep up or trying to sit in with the Freddie band that you were in. Or I also see it now that I'm here. I mean, I want to see someone trying to keep up with Hutch when he's playing, when he's full. You know what I mean? It's
Man.
the end of story. Just to
And
get
and you know Hutch is another one of those players. He can go anywhere you
anywhere,
need him to go. You
anywhere.
know, he could play with the Ray Brown trio, and he could play with Steve Coleman's Five Elements, no problem. You
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah. But I always felt I can tell that from my generation, and we speak about it a lot. I mean, all of my friends, Walter and Aaron Parks and Keon Harrell and all. I mean, we always speak about we all grew up listening to you guys and the generation about you guys, and then all the classic shit. And I play electric guitar and electric music, bass, whatever. But I mean, if you don't study that, if you don't have that, the chances of you being able to speak to an audience in an open air thing and have that,
That's right.
if you don't know, if you cannot swing and if you don't, the chances of you projecting to that kind of audience,
Yeah.
I mean, best of luck to you. But
Yeah. Hey man, I gotta tell you about this gig I played about 4 years ago. I played with I did a trio gig with John Zorn and Milford Graves at the Village
huh,
Club. And you know, I asked John, I said, what are we gonna play? He said, man, you know, we just gonna improvise. Let's do a complete free improvised set. And I remember at some point during the gig, um, he just played like a little snippet, just a little tiny bit. John Zorn played a bird lick, played like a Charlie Parker lick. And like, I started laughing my butt off, man, because it was like, you know, it was sort of John's way of saying, like, see, none of y'all thought I knew this, did you? You know, and
yeah,
after the gig was over, we had this, you know, we hanging out backstage, we had this great conversation. And Milford Graves said, when some musicians I know found out that you and I were going to be playing together, they couldn't get over it. They were just like, Milford, you playing with who? Christian. And Milford's like, well, what's so strange about that? What's the big shock?
yeah.
It's like you know, I never saw you two crossing paths, you know. So again, that doesn't come from the musician's ability or willingness to play with each other and to get into other areas in which we're not known. I think that's more of the listener, the writer, the fans. You know, they need people to be in their box. You know, and the musicians aren't in there. You know, I mean, there's definitely a place where I live more than other places, right? And so musically speaking, I think you probably will hear me swinging and playing more groove-based music than you would hear me play abstract or free music. But that doesn't mean I can't, won't, or will have any issues really digging deep down and respecting that music. I don't have a problem with any of it, man. I'm a server. I'm a lifelong server.
But you know, all people like when we got to Berlin a year ago, I reached out to Greg Cohen who lives here,
Oh yeah.
and everybody, and I was like, I was saying to people my age, let's play with Greg, and they say, no, he doesn't play like Mastada anymore. He plays old 30s standards now, and I go like, so what does that tell you?
What's wrong
I
with
mean,
that? Right, exactly.
I mean, if that guy chooses to do that, that means a lot. That speaks a lot.
Yeah.
So
I love
last
it,
two.
man. That's my man.
Yeah, he's amazing. Last two. You record with Joe so much. I mean, Joe Anderson, any Joe Anderson story, I can only imagine what it's like. Speaking about having the changes in front of you and someone plays something completely different. I mean, there's almost no one like him.
Yeah.
in relation to that.
Oh man, I got a few people know him stories, but I will say that playing with him was just it was unbelievable, man. The first time I got to play with him was on someone else's record. It was on Stephen Scott's record. Stephen Scott.
I love Stephen Scott.
Yeah, his Verve debut, which was called Something to Consider. I think that was done in like early 1991. And then
you and Stephen were really tight. I mean, with Roy and the whole thing. I mean, you had a thing. For me, the album that he had afterwards, Renaissance, is like it was a huge album. Huge.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Clarence is killing on it.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
And that summer, I got to play with Joe in a quartet. Now, how's this, man? I played in a quartet. It was for one concert at Jazz Lincoln Center with McCoy Tyner and Roy Haynes. Yeah. And definitely one of my earliest pinch me moments. You know, kind of like, I'm not supposed to be up here. You know, and then like a month later, we made the Lush Life album. Man, what Joe
and he opens the album in duo with you. I mean, there's nothing was quite like that. Just behind, just duo with you.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, thank you, man. I was very proud of the times I got to play with Joe. We played on the Double Rainbow album. I don't remember what song we were playing, but I was playing something, and Joe wanted a different bass groove, but say what he wanted. And so he comes over to the bass, and you can't imitate Joe Henderson without doing the glasses, you know, because he was constantly pushing his glasses up all the time, you know. And so he comes over to the bass, and he says, I mean, it's totally out of a comedy movie. He says, Mcbride, that groove you're playing, I'm wondering if you could play it more like, you know, give me, you know what I mean? Like, change the groove so it's more like, you know, I dig what you're playing, but if just play a little more like, so, he just couldn't get it out. It was so funny, man. He's just like, yeah, like just like, you know, a little more. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, just play it more like. So, I said, Joe, you want me to change the groove? And he goes, right.
Epic. So last two questions, because you know, I can go all night.
That's a pleasure.
I want to talk about.
No problem. Go for it.
Then I'll take fine. The thing that you had with Kenny Garrett, it's not documented enough for my money.
Kenny lives right down the street. I haven't seen him in like 5 years.
But he's on your album. You guys recorded with Haynes and with Chick. I mean, I always thought that there was just like a hand in glove in the daringness and just the talking about perfect time, or you know, that anyone ever had perfect time. I mean, what is it like for you guys playing together?
Man, Kenny Garrett is just he's just unbelievable, man. Like you always have to be moved. You're always moved when you play with Kenny Garrett. You know, he has a way of, you know, like cracking that stone. You know what I mean? Like after the gig is over, you're gonna feel like you've been like the church. You're gonna feel washed almost. You know what I mean? But yeah, the first time I'm trying to remember the first time I played with Kenny. I think the first time I had a chance to play with Kenny might have been with Mulgrew Miller.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I have to go back and check, but I remember going to St. Lucia or somewhere, with Mulgrew. I did that like a couple of times with Mulgrew. I played with him in like two or 3 years in a row. We went down to the Caribbean, played some gigs down there, and Kenny was on one.
This was the Wingspan era?
It was just after that. Well, Wingspan never actually broke up. Like, there were different iterations of Wingspan. Like, sometimes I would play with Mulgrew and it would be trio. Sometimes it would be Billy Pierce and Steve Nelson. So it wasn't technically Wingspan, but it basically was Wingspan. But anyhow, Kenny, the first time we actually got a chance to play together consistently was with Chick Corea on the Remembering Bud Powell tour in late 1996. Joshua Redman did the first part of the tour. Kenny Garrett came and did like the middle of the tour, and then Joshua came back and finished it. But yeah, man, I can't get enough of Kenny Garrett, man. He's something special.
Yeah, to see him live is breathtaking.
Yes.
What about the trio with Matheny? What was that like?
Pat's another person who it's always a joy to work with him. I somehow missed the Matheny group thing in the 1980s. The only Pat Metheny group song I really knew was Last Train Home. I knew that song, but I didn't know like Are You Going With Me and the album Travels. I didn't learn all that stuff until I got to New York. And so when I played with Pat for the first time, which was in 1993.
With Josh and Billy?
And Billy Higgins, that's right. I remember we played somewhere, and it might have been the first gig in Europe. And we started playing that song, James. And the audience like, and the audience goes, ah! And I'm on stage thinking, the song must be popular. I got some research to do. And then, you know, he went out and played a solo guitar, and he played the song September 15th, which is like one of the most gorgeous pieces of music ever composed. But again, when he played it, I didn't know it. So he starts playing September 15th, and like, you know, the audience starts screaming, and all these girls just start, you know, passing out and fainting in the audience and stuff. And I remember just backstage like, damn, I got some homework to do. But playing with Pat is a joy, man. He's remember what I said about Cannonball Adderley? Like, he can converse about anything. Pat is a very, very well-rounded person. You know, one of the few people I know that spends the entire day, or I have seen him spend much of the day watching C-SPAN. Like, nobody watches the C-SPAN channel all day long, you know, but he's very interested in politics. He wants to know what's going on. He wants to know how the system works, how it all relates to one another. So he's a Renaissance person, and he's just a good friend and obviously a great musician. And Antonio Sanchez, man, he's also become like he's become a true brother. I think that if I were to have a party and I were to invite my closest friends of the last 30 years, I think most people would think there's some sort of drum convention going on, because some of my closest friends have all been drummers, you know. Brian Blade, Greg Hutchinson, Carl Allen, Lewis Nash, Jeff Tane Watts, Jack DeJohnette, Antonio Sanchez. We're all like, you know, Nasheed Waits. We're all besties. Terriana Gully, too many people to name, man. Jerome Jennings, who's also a neighbor. What's up, Romy? Um, and being on the road with Pat's trio, Antonio and I just got to be, you know, he's just he's a lovable person, and and a hell of a musician. I got some great road stories about us, but can't share them here over the internet.
I will say about Pat that to have that kind of humility where he's at, I mean, that's just it's always I'm always my jaw is for just the kind of person he is.
Yeah.
And at any point in his life, but I think if speaking about the group albums, there was like a pocket in the late '80s where he had like a huge mega smash hit album after another.
Yes.
And people always kind of talk about these albums, and if you put almost anything next to it, the lack of imagination will be so. I mean, just what they wrote. And there's big band in it. I mean, it's a huge, it's almost like a big band, the way they function within all that sound. It's kind of unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Like the great care they take of detail, like to the way the music was written, to the way it was arranged and orchestrated and recorded and mixed and mastered. Like from beginning to end, every little single detail was really thought out, and but the key word you use is imagination. You know, it's expansive, you know.
And soul. I mean, he plays something your heart goes up. It's just it's just deserves soul. All right, last one, because I would really go all night, talk about Haynes, talk about everyone. Chick Corea, you guys worked together so much. Yes. I mean, it's so well documented now, and I think I'm going to choose my words carefully. And you and Blade bring something to his music that it was a breath of fresh air for me.
Well, I got a call from I think it was Dave Kukoski. Dave Kukoski hit me up when the first Chick Corea trilogy record came out, and he said, "Man, I don't know what has to happen, but Chick needs to keep you and Blade in the trio." He's like, you know, y'all got Chick back to something that he hadn't felt like he heard in a long time. I mentioned, like when I was telling the story about working with Herbie in the recording studio, Chick is the same way, man. I mean, he's just one of the cats, man. He loves playing. I've never seen anybody as prolific as Chick Corea. He's always writing new music. He's always got some project going on. He keeps a lot of different musicians employed. I deeply respect that about him. You know, because he's got like, you know, 3 or 4 different groups, and he wants to share his world, and I've always deeply respected him for that. But in the middle of that world, I'd like to feel like I've had a special place in his world for over 20 years now. You know, when he played on my second CD, Number 2 Express, you know, he took me on the road with him with the Remembering Bud Powell trio. Quintet. And we played together in different combinations. We made a trio recording with Steve Gadd around 2004.
You also recorded with Joe together, right?
With the big band, that's right. Joe Henderson Big Band.
He's amazing on it.
In fact, we did that. The Joe Henderson Big Band record was made in the middle of the Remembering Bud Powell tour.
Oh.
Yeah, so we had like a couple of days off from the tour, and then we went, you know, and recorded this record with Joe. And to see Chick and Joe play together, that was something, because Chick really, really loved Joe. He still talks about Joe Henderson all the time, man. But Chick, like Pat, has become a real dear friend, and I really, really love playing with Chick, man, because he has a certain bounce, you know. Something about his time still feels very bouncy. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a joy as a rhythm section player. Like, you know, he never slows down, he never rushes. You know, it's just kind of like right in the middle. You know what I mean? Like that feel you hear on Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. He's retained that, you know, and I like the fact that I feel fortunate that even though Blade and I have played in his trio for quite a stretch now, most of the time when I played with Chick in the past has always been with Roy Hayes.
Yeah.
So my relationship with Roy, I mean, a lot of that is because of my relationship with Chick. You know, even though I got to play with Roy Haynes before I got to play with Chick, something about, I mean, everybody knows the relationship between Roy and Chick has always been so special. And I've had a chance to stand in the middle of that many times through the years. And I consider myself quite fortunate.
That's unbelievable. Kristen, listen, it's an hour until the album drops on iTunes here, so I gotta go and get ready.
Okay, right on.
You guys gotta cop this album. It's gonna be the album of the year. The thing that I've heard online is just unbelievable. It has everything that you're talking about in it. It's just, I mean, it's exuberance with joy and beauty. Because it's kind of amazing in many ways, especially in an era where everybody's playing small groups. I mean, everybody's like saving on God knows what. I can't thank you enough for coming on board. My love to you and Melissa, and stay safe.
But before you go, you got a new project out, right?
It's not as interesting as talking about you.
No. Come on, man. Dab yourself. I want to hear about it, man. Come on, put your thing in there, man.
No. Let's do this.
That's my job.
The short story is, I was supposed to go with Jack Jeanette to South Africa. And we were supposed to do a thing there, and I got into a motorcycle accident like a week before or something.
Oh, no.
And so I went through this rehab thing, taught myself slowly how to play with a couple of ex-students of mine. And it just evolved in writing, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I don't want to talk about it. I'll just send you one. And that's, you know what I mean? It's the end of the story. It's not as cool as listening to you. So I'm happy it's out. I'm amazed by the reaction that it's been getting. I mean, well beyond my wildest dreams. And that's, you know, that's what it boils down to. But I'm going to steal all of the shit you told me today. And I'm mixing that shit.
Hey, it's free. Take it, man. You don't have to steal it. You got it.
So, my love to Melissa and you, and just stay safe and stay well. And I can't wait to cop the new album. It's already on the way. And
thank you, brother.
I'll see you soon.
My pleasure, man. Great talking to you.
Thanks so much for coming.
All right. I feel like I just got to hang in the coolest backstage conversation ever. And thank you both for that. I want to remind people that Christian's album comes out tonight. It's a global thing for Jimmy, Wes, and Oliver. And look on all services, but you can also go to macavenue.com to get more information. Dekel Bor does have a record out with Rope-A-Dope, Let Love Rule, available at dekelbor.bandcamp.com and all streaming services. This is Speakin' My Piece in association with Jazz Times, and we will be back next week with Keon Harold. So put some reminders on and come back and visit with us. All right, we're clear.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks again, Christian.
Hey, my pleasure, man. You take care of yourself. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Pleasure all mine. Bye-bye.
And good to see you too, Lewis.
Yeah, good to see you. I didn't know how to reach you all these years.
You know now, right?
I do now. Yeah.
Solid, man.
Yeah. It's been a lot going on over here.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll catch up soon, gentlemen.
You got it. Thanks so much,
Thank you
Christian.
for coming.
All right.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Dekel.
Bye-bye.
Talk soon.
See you.
Bye.